Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. Well, it's truly the holiday season, and this is the time of year when I get mildly panicked. I don't know why, because it's not like I have lots to do, but there's just this certain aura about the holidays, I guess, that just brings that on. So we're going to talk about clothes today, possible things to make quickly for the holidays, both the Christmas season and New Year's, Hanukkah, all of that. And but before we get into that, I want to tell you that this Thursday, for you So Confident members, this is your chance to have a Zoom cocktail party with us at 4 o'clock on Thursday, December 9th, Central Time. And I'm going to be doing the actual class for the month of December as a live Zoom call. And then we're going to be recording it so that you can watch it again, but it's just a little bit different format than we've been doing in the past. The project for December is the Valencia pants. It's just the kind of pants that you're going to want to wear for the holidays and frankly for the rest of the year as well. So here are the pants. The Valencia pants are very, very simple to make. There's no side seam, just the inner leg seams. Has a nice flat waistband across the front and elastic around the back, and they're very sleek, particularly when you make them in 4-ply silk, 3-ply silk, or in this case, polyester crepe. So I'm going to be talking about the techniques of working with that kind of fabric that's a little bit spongy, fabric that wants to pucker on you, and how to sew a refined hem, good seam finishes, how to do this particular waistband technique. And then we're going to have a parade of everyone who is associated with the sewing workshop in Topeka who've made pants for the season to come on, and we're going to have a little fashion show and a little toast to our successful So Confident 2021 and talk about the launch a little sneak peek of So Confident 2022. So that is the lineup for Thursday. I hope if you're a yearly member, monthly member, you'll join us. And if you haven't joined yet, you certainly have time. We are sending out kits in various colors. They're on the website. So get your kit ordered, and we'll see you on Thursday. All right, so I used to go to fancy parties at the holidays. I don't know, I would dress up in my finery and my husband would wear his tux and we would go stepping out at night and just, I would gussy up. Either I'm not on anybody's list anymore or nobody's throwing parties, but I haven't been invited to a party like that in a long time. And so the holiday seasons brings more home-like, comfortable experiences, including in my own home. And so my dressing has changed a little bit for the holidays. I'm not wearing my formal wear, but I want to look festive. So today I'm going to show you some possible ways to dress for the holidays, and if you have time, to make a couple of simple things. And we're going to start actually with the Valencia pants again. So if you are a pants wearer, you might consider making the Valencia pants in a velour. Now there's a difference between velour and velvet. I love velvet, I love velour, but they're very, very different. And I think people use those terms interchangeably, which is really not accurate. Velour is a knit. It has stretch, and it's in the knit category. So you sew it as if you were sewing knits. Velvet is definitely a woven fabric, and it's manufactured with two backings, a top and a bottom, with all the pile in between, and then knives come through and cut that, and it creates two layers of velvet. And velvet can be made up of lots of different fibers, from silk, rayon, cotton, whatever, and velour tends to be in more synthetic fibers. Maybe some polyester, polyester blend, whatever. But again, without a seam allowance on the side seam, these Valencia pants in a velour really go together quickly, and they are so comfortable. And I don't top stitch the velour. I do a hand stitch on the bottom, hand whip stitch. I was in Cleveland over the weekend helping Alex, my daughter, move into her new place. And we did a little bit of shopping and walked into a couple of stores, Anthropologie being one and Eileen Fisher the other. And the stores were full of velour pants. Jogger-style pants, dressy pants, skirts. The whole store was velvet tops and bottoms and skirts and all of that. So this is really, really on trend, and I think you would really enjoy wearing these. So if you're a skirt person, maybe you want to make the 8th Avenue skirt either short like this, or the other version in the pattern is long. And it does have this interesting side piece insertion that's kind of this A shape. But again, this is super easy to make. There's just a seam here, and a seam here, and a side seam, and the band is not a traditional waistband. It's more like a facing that is sewn on and comes over to the back side and just creates what looks like a binding at the top. So it's a super easy skirt to make. Another really easy skirt to make and great for the holidays is our E skirt, which is a wrap. And it's a full wrap, so you have a lot of coverage, but so easy to make. There's literally one seam in this pattern, a back seam, and then you have 2 pieces of fabric that come around and wrap, and a little bit of shaping at the top, and a Velcro closure, believe it or not. So this one goes together really, really fast and really easy. And just, you probably have some fabric in your stash, frankly, that you could make, but, a good black skirt is going to serve you well for a long time, not just for the holiday season, but forever, actually. So pants, a couple of skirts, 8th Avenue, E skirt. Think about those for the bottoms. So I'm going to hang my Valencias back up here a minute. And let's put some things with that. So here is the Anne's tank, which normally is sleeveless, but you can use the sleeve from the Anne's cardigan to put into the tank, so you can have a long sleeve tank, so to speak. And this has a nice A shape to it. You can leave the sides open, as I've done here, or you can close that up. But this is a lightweight sweater knit that has sequins on it. So now this is your chance to bring a little bling into the outfit. And that you can do all tonal, which is really beautiful, gray on gray, and then pop it with your favorite scarf in your favorite color. Now this happens to be a scarf that is in a couple of my books, Scarves to Make and Sew Easy Scarves. And I think it's also in the Sewing Workshop book as well. I'd have to look and make sure. But I love this scarf because it has 2 what look like bound buttonholes, but it's just so easy to make, this little detail here. And I like it because you don't have to tie the scarf. You can just put it through the opening and create any length that you want. You could tie it if you choose to, wrap it a couple of times. But it makes a great little accent piece for your sequin top, subtle sequin top, and your velour pants. Or you could add a little bit of lace, either stretch lace or regular lace. And the lace, we think of lace as really dressy, formal, wedding, all of that. But there are lots of textural laces that are really unique. And this one is a blue, and I actually like this slate blue with the charcoal. I think it's really pretty. But this is the Hudson top, which is an oversized top. Normally it has a cowl, big, big, deep cowl top. So I just left that off. And because this is lace, then I just finished it with good old bias binding, either the kind of binding that you can buy in the package, or you can make your own bias binding as well with some bias tape makers. So Hudson top, you could also make this long as a tunic and wear skinny pants, or you can make it shorter and wear it with slightly fuller pants such as the Valencias. So that's the way the Hudson is without the cowl. But you can actually make the Hudson even simpler. So this is the Hudson. Again, the neckline is finished with some pre-made bias binding. But now there's no sleeve, and the shoulder seams are sewn, and then the side seams, so to speak, are finished, turned in, and then just a little tack right here for an arm opening. And there is just nothing more simple than this to wear perhaps over something else. This is a Eureka top, which is also quite simple to make. Actually, this is not a Eureka top. This is an Ann's tank. Now that I look at it, I'd made the assumption it was a Eureka, but it's an Ann's tank again with a shorter sleeve. But something a little bit glittery underneath this little shrug, we'll call it. So you talk about easy. Sew 2 shoulder seams, put some pre-made bias binding around the neck, hem the edges in the bottom, and hand tack under the arm to make the arm opening. But you get a little bit of glitter going on underneath. So that's also the Hudson top and the Ann's tank. Now, if you just want super simple, again, tonal, and you have fabulous jewelry, then perhaps you want to make a simple Eureka top. This time, this is a knit in a fabric that has a little bit of a metallic glisten to it. So I love that. It's subtle, but yet it's slightly dressy. The Eureka top makes a nice top either in a knit or in a pretty silk. Put a little necklace with this, some fun shoes, some metallic shoes maybe, and you could go anywhere, to any party, to anyone's house, to dinner, to whatever, and looking really good. Now, another Eureka top is also made out of some sequins here, but now I've put it over or under the E shrug, which very possibly is our simplest garment on the planet. A shoulder seam, insert a sleeve, and you are done. And again, this is this metallic, what do you call this, Erin? Metallic, iridescent, maybe that's a better word. It just has a, can you see the glisten on the screen? I don't know.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Bring it closer. There we go.
Yeah. But the edges don't have to be finished because it's a knit, and you wear it over another Eureka top. If you need a little jacket, the E shrug, you can make the E shrug. I always hesitate to say how long it takes to make something, but honestly, I used to teach this class at the trade shows, the E shrug, and people would come, they'd cut out the E shrug, and they'd sew it, and they'd wear it out of the classroom. And the class was supposed to be 2.5 hours long, but everybody always left after an hour. So that's cutting out and making it, and they were strutting their E-shrugs all over the showroom floors of the trade shows. So really super easy garment to make. Now you can add some lace, and this is the swing tee. This is actually...
That's a mix-it.
This is a mix-it tank. But what's over it is the swing tee in a couple of layers. The front is shorter than the back, and we've added the long sleeve. And this whole ensemble is part of So Confident Series 7. And we have a whole tutorial on how to work with lace, how to make the swing tee into this garment. And you can see Erin wearing this in the photograph. I've forgotten what you were wearing it with. Probably black pants.
Pencil pants?
Pencil
Black
pants, I think.
pants.
Yeah, skinny pants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I like the idea of wearing a color under the lace. I think it makes it pop and makes it more interesting. So it could be a color, it can be sequins, anything. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, yes. So on the dress form, we have the Ikena 2 jacket. And it's been lengthened. And it's also made in a pretty spectacular silk burnout Deborah fabric, as it's called, with a contrasting band. And this is, I don't know, I can see this to just throw on, choose a fabulous fabric and throw it on all black, and you can go anywhere. This can go year-round, holiday, whatever. Now, I'm showing it over a sleeveless original tank in a silver sequin, but it can be something a little more understated than that. So you can make the Ikena 2 short or long. Here's a short version, also in a pretty silk. Has a little bit of an Asian flavor to it, mostly because of this particular combination of silk fabrics, but yet it has a kimono style elements to it. So those are some of the styles that I think you would really enjoy making that don't take a lot of time for the holidays. Most of us have probably gotten through most of our decorating, and maybe we've thought about what we're going to cook if we're cooking. So maybe we have time to catch an evening or a Saturday morning or something to actually put something together to wear. So let's talk about some techniques here a little bit. Actually, I might go through the fabrics first. Do we have any questions I need to ask about anything yet?
There's one that says, could we see the black overlay piece again? Not the one with the red top, but the other one.
This one, probably.
That would make sense.
So this is the Hudson top. You can see it's just almost two rectangles put together. But there is some shaping to the shoulder seam, so it's a little bit better than that.
And then they did have just a question about the Hudson top, and whether we're going to do that as a download.
I don't know the answer to that question. We probably should. But it's not on the schedule at the moment. But if we get enough response, I suppose we will.
How do you sew sequin velour without breaking needles?
I sew sequin, that's part of what I'm going to talk about, actually, but I sew sequin velour on my serger. I sew sequins mostly on my serger rather than sewing machine. And why they don't break with a serger, I can't tell you, and they break with a sewing machine, they do. But try 4-thread, either 3-thread or 4-thread, probably 4-thread serging, and you should be okay. Now, if you are a couture sewer, you would remove the sequins in the seam allowance. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about quick projects, and so you want to put that on your serger, and you should be fine.
And what size is the black Hudson top?
The black Hudson top, it's hard to say what size that is, but I would think the Hudson top is a very oversized garment. A lot of people can wear a much smaller size than they measure. But in that sort of garment, I don't think it really matters what size it is because it's going to drape and flow. But for instance, I would normally make a small in most tops, sometimes a medium, but I can wear an extra small in that top if I chose to. But I would still probably make a small just so it would have enough flow and drape. Okay, so let's look at some fabrics, and then we'll talk about how to work with the fabrics a little bit. So I want to start with this bottom one, which is the hardest one for you to see. But this is a really interesting fabric and would make a fabulous skirt or jacket. It is a stretch woven, and the stretch is on the vertical. So you always have to check that, of course, when you get the fabric. But it has an overprint of a beautiful paisley. Now, this has a slight moleskin flavor to it, or suede flavor to it. The background is very matte, but it's not thick like that. It's thinner. But this embossing on it is what creates the interest. So as you move, it changes and it picks up the various patterns that are printed on this fabric. This is a burnout. So this, of course, would be a wonderful Hudson top to go over maybe a black tank. And I think this would also be a pretty good shrug, actually, now that I look at it. You might have to hem the edges, probably would, but it would be a pretty cool shrug over a black top. Now this is very similar to the Anne's tank with the sleeves that I showed. This is a very lightweight velour, so it does have stretch, and it does have these somewhat metallic sequins. They're not super bright, but this would be a good example of a fabric that I would serge together. I would make the garment on my serger as best I can. One thing you might try, one little thought on the needles, is there's a new needle, chrome needles, and they really are a lot stronger. And you might want to try those needles. I like them a lot. In fact, I sew with them more often than I used to. So that may be a needle that won't break on you. The other thing is, I talk about sergers. We always forget to change the needles in our serger. I always change the needles in my sewing machine, but I forget about my serger. But we do need to change the needles in our serger, and we can change the needles appropriate to the fabric that we're serging. This is another kind of Devereux burnout in this black and blue and camel color, kind of an animal print Devereux. So you can see through this. This would make a lovely Hudson top. And the red lace has some stretch to it. Put that over, make your swing tee, your Hudson top. Of course, you could layer this over anything and make a skirt. So you don't have to use the transparency of it. You can back it with a lining fabric or any kind of fabric. Even something that has a print on it would be interesting with lace over it.
I like that.
I know. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that would be interesting to marry a lace over a print. Now this is Erin's favorite fabric in the store, and this is a beautiful, beautiful Italian silk with a bit of a twill weave to it. But this looks like a real painting, and it's totally luscious. So make a beautiful blouse. Make a Eureka top, make a Liberty shirt, a simple shirt, simple top. It'd make gorgeous pants. It'd make gorgeous Valencia pants for the holidays, and then you wear maybe something more simple on the top. Now this is one of my favorite stretch laces. This has a lot of stretch to it. And I love this. It's not shiny. This has a bit of a formality to it, whereas this is quite casual and would be super comfortable to wear. And we're seeing this sort of thing all over the stores. Even if you just use this for sleeves on something, maybe you use the same color for the body of a top, use these for sleeves. Or maybe this is a trim on something, maybe a bottom flounce or an insertion. But I love this because it's quite cotton looking, but it's not cotton. We don't really know what it is. It has polyester in it. That's about all we know. It's a poly blend, so who knows. This is another burnout. This is luscious. This is all silk. If you don't want to deal with this in a big way, make a gorgeous scarf. Buy a yard of it and double it or not. Back it with some velvet. You'd have an incredible, incredible scarf. But of course, it would make a beautiful garment as well. We actually made pants in something like this a while back, and of course we lined them with some China silk, but they'd make great pants. Now we have a couple of these iridescent metallic knits. This is a very interesting color. There is a green cast to it, so it appears to be gray, but it's definitely has a green sea green cast to it, I guess I call it. And the other colorway we have is the bronze. But look how drapey and liquid these are. So great skirts, Eureka skirt, simple elastic weight skirt that's like a tube. Pants, oh my, pants would be fantastic in this. You'd feel like $1 million.
The Oasis skirt. Wouldn't that be pretty in the Oasis?
It'd be gorgeous. The reason that a Eureka skirt would be interesting is because those pieces are cut on different grains. And so you would get a play of color change in the Eureka skirt. Might have to do that.
I know.
The best ideas come from just doing Facebook Live. All right, so then we have a couple of stretch velours, the black, of course, great pants, great Hudson top. Now, I'm calling this, holiday, but there's nothing like wearing this like to sleep in or around the house, real super casual wear. Make some joggers, the Mason top or something like that. I've noticed that J-Lo and other stars like that are wearing matching tops and bottoms in casual wear, sweatshirts and joggers. So unlike me, who would probably make black and put a color with it, they would do both pieces in the same color. And then I love this color. This is the color of the season, but I love it with black, actually. Look at it with that bronze. Stretch velvet again in this golden camel color.
That's really nice.
Yeah. And then, of course, everybody needs the reason this is tied up like it is because it has no support to the, you like this? But everybody needs something like this, either as a scarf or a simple Eureka top or a tank. But I love this. And it just goes with everything, You can't not have this. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it like that. There we go. All right, so those are our fabrics. So let's talk techniques a little bit. So if you're working with something that's an open weave, something like this, how do you sew this? Well, you can serge it, but actually I would sew a seam, but I would use a zigzag stitch as my seam stitch style. Pretty big, so that you are zigzagging through the various holes and solid portions of the lace. That'll hold it together. That also allows it to stretch. And then I would serge finish the edges. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not. We'll see if we can get that. But that is a zigzag stitched seam, and then it's been 3 threads serged. So anytime something's open, think about using a zigzag. Now, finishing it is really an option. It's not like it has to be finished. It's just sometimes the edges are kind of prickly or just not that attractive. So I tend to serge it if I want to just kind of clean it up. But it's not about the stability of the seam, because you've done that with the zigzag. It's more about the look and the finishing of it. Now, if you're sewing velveteen or velour or velvet, sewing velour is super easy. Where are my pants here? I did a traditional seam using polyester thread because it's a knit. Sewed the seam and then 3 threads serged the edges together and pressed them one direction. Now the pressing is the big deal. The seam finish is no big deal. That's easy to sew. But it does want to slip on you. And so the big deal is to get yourself a can of Sulky KK 2000 or some other brand of spray adhesive. And you want to put some paper on your ironing surface, and then you want to put the fabrics right side together. But before you do that, you spray this on the right side of the seam allowance of the underpiece, and then you put the other layer on top of that, and it holds it. So you don't have to pin this fabric. It'll hold. And because it has a pile, this dissipates and you don't have to wash it out or anything. It's really gone by the time you open it up. And I don't know, this is like a miracle. My famous story about this is I was teaching a sewing with velvet class at San Francisco years and years ago. And it was meant for a 3-day class, and we were making the Canenby top, which is an old pattern of ours. And so I said to the group, we met the first night, I said, you know, this is going to be a long class because it's going to take you a long time to sew this velvet and velour and velveteen. It's going to require a lot of hand basting. And so I demonstrated the 3 different ways to hand baste velvet. We left that night, and the next day, I think it was Ann Netting, came to me and she said, you know, I read on the internet that if you use Sulky K2000 to spray adhesive your seam allowances, you don't even have to pin it. Well, of course, we ran to the store and bought the store out of all the bottles of this. And instead of 3 days of making the garment, we made them in 1 day. And so then we got to make another garment the next couple days. So this has been a real lifesaver for me. And it takes that scary part of sewing fabrics that have a pile into it's just another fabric. So remember to do that. Now, remember the paper, because there is an overspray. And you do want to protect your surfaces that you're working on. Of course, they sell the other can of something that will remove it, but frankly, if you just cover the area with paper, you're fine. But the pressing of these kinds of fabrics is a big deal. So, I don't know, let's see if we can see this. Yes. Can you see why you don't want to touch the fabric with your iron? You want to steam these fabrics. You don't want to let the iron touch the fabric, or you get this nice impression of an iron. I also don't want to move a pressing cloth, so to speak, around on my ironing surface. I have all of the needle boards and other kinds of materials that are sold to press velvet or pile fabrics, but you have to move them, and I don't want to do that. So I want to cover my entire surface of my ironing board with something that will allow me to press the pile, steam the pile. And so I buy a big piece of mohair fabric. And you want it to be really rough and really deep, and it can be cheap. Go to the back end of some big box store and buy the cheap upholstery fabric that's kind of velvety and veloury and brown, and you would hate it. And so get enough to cover your entire surface so that you can just press and not have to worry about moving this surface around. So those are tips on sewing velvet, sewing open weave fabrics, and we talked about sewing sequins. So I think I've covered just a few tips for all of that. Any questions about techniques?
Would the KK2000 work on faux fur type fabrics?
I've not used it on faux fur, but it should. I find that on faux furs, I tend to remove the fur from the seam allowance, and so I'm not dealing with the pile so much. Or you can tape the fur with Scotch tape to one side and get it out of the way while you stitch it. But yeah, it should work. I deal with that a bit in my Craftsy class called You Can Sew That. There's a whole lesson on sewing fur and faux furs. And I don't talk about KK2000 in that, but probably should have.
Can you show the bottle again so
Yeah.
they can see what it looks like? Maybe a little closer. There we go. Okay. Is there anything else you could use instead of the spray? Could you use basting tape?
Well, basting tape depends on what kind of basting tape it is. If it's a basting tape that you have to fuse down, no, because you would have to touch the fabric. If it's a tape that you just lay down, like craft tape, maybe. But you're dealing with a pile, and things move on that pile. I don't think so, actually.
I think this relates.
By the way, you always want to sew with the pile going down. You want to sew with the pile direction.
When you were doing the open weave fabrics, could you make a French seam?
Yes, it strikes me that that's overkill and kind of thick and would show through. I'm looking for something that retains the transparency of the fabric. So to me, that would be a little too much. But yes, possibly, depending on the lace. Now, you know, real lace, real lace, you cut around the motif and you lay that in and match the motifs and you stitch that around the edges. But we're not talking about that here.
Can you describe the fabric and pattern that you're wearing?
I am wearing the Detour jacket in wool, a wool herringbone. I'm actually wearing a sweater that I purchased, and I have on the the Chesney pants from years ago that were actually formerly called the Ikena pants.
Does the velour fabric breathe? Would it be too hot for those of us who have hot flashes?
Well, I doubt if it breathes. You know, it's polyester and it's fairly dense. And so I think if you wear something, if you make something that's loose and oversized a bit and flowy, I don't think you're going to be as hot as if you were to wear something skin tight. But no, I can't say this is a breathable fabric.
Can the stretch woven at the bottom there, the paisley, could it be used for pencil pants?
Well, let's see here. Pencil pants. I think there's probably enough stretch for pencil pants. You'll have to cut it on the cross grain because you'll want the stretch to go around. Yeah, those would be pretty.
Did you line your wool jacket or underline?
No, I did not. I could, but I didn't.
If you're going to get the floral for Valencia pants, what fabric and color would you use for a top?
Oh, well, this cerise red would be pretty gorgeous if that's your color family. I might do some sort of odd green thing with it. Some people might do a violet blue. I'm sure we could come up with something. Any sort of pink would be pretty fabulous. This has all kinds of different red tones, from very pink flowers to slightly more warm tone flowers to blues, violets, dusty pinks, several greens. The background is black, and there'd be nothing prettier than black with it.
If you're making the Valencia pants in the shorter length, like the velour pants, how high above the ankle should you hem them?
If you're making them cropped to me is at least 2 inches above the ankle, if not more.
Might depend on what kind of shoes you're going to wear,
Yeah,
too.
that's true. What do you think?
I think if I'm wearing ankle boots, which is what I envision it to be worn with, you would want to have it about 2 inches above the ankle. Mm-hmm. But maybe if you're wearing heels, then maybe you want to have...
Right.
I don't know who wears heels, but...
One of the things I'm going to talk about, one of the things I'm going to talk about on Thursday is how to narrow the legs of the Valencia pants, because there's no side seam.
On the website, the black sequin fabric is velour, and it's also called velveteen, which is my mistake. Must have forgotten to change one of those.
We caught the name of that before we went online here. It was described originally as a velveteen, and we changed the title to velour. The body of the copy should have said velour as well. It is a velour. Velveteen is wrong.
It's a stretch. It's a
stretch. Yeah, this is a stretch. Velveteen is a woven. Velour is a stretch. Velvet and velveteen, just as another little side note, velvet and velveteen can be made out of the same thing. But let's say velvet is made out of cotton and velveteen is made out of cotton. Well, they're different because the construction is different and the pile is constructed differently. One breaks on the horizontal and one breaks on the vertical. Just a little side note. And I forget which one is which.
If you are serging through sequins, do you need to worry about sharpening the serger cutting blades?
I've never sharpened my cutting blade in the 80 years I've been sewing. I haven't had a serger for 80 years. I've only had a serger for 50. And I've never changed a blade.
You just got a new serger.
Yeah, just get a new serger. Oh, forget those blades. Just buy a new serger. Yeah. I don't know. I suppose it's possible to have to change the blade after a time. If you're sewing a lot of sequins over a lot of period of time, possibly. But you know, sequins, I think there are differences in sequins. And these sequins that we're talking about are like just little thin plastic discs. They're not those little metal old-fashioned sequins like I used to use as a kid. So I think this is just, we're just not dealing with that kind of a sequin thing here. But if you're working with something, an old sequin, I remember when I made this, let's see what I did here. See, I just serged this seam, and I've got sequins sticking out, I've got sequins not sticking out, and I didn't worry about it. See, there's some that are flattened. I did bind the edges on these sequins with some knit, so I didn't have to worry about that. And then I left the bottom edge raw.
Can you, since you have that, can you show that jacket again and tell them what it is?
This jacket? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gonna.
This is the Ikena 2 jacket. And this is in a silk débarré, meaning burnout. So there's parts of the fabric that have been chemically removed. But it's pretty much of a kimono style jacket. This has been lengthened. I can't tell you how much. Some. It's been too long ago.
Okay, someone said they have a baby lock serger and thought there was only one needle type allowed. Does the Bernina use domestic needles?
Yeah, Berninas use any needle. So I change my needles all the time. When I had a baby lock, you're right, it came with a particular needle, but I never paid attention to that. I used the needles that I needed to use. So that's, now a baby lock dealer is probably going to tell you differently, and I'm not going to argue with them about that. But I use whatever needle I need to in my sergers, whatever the brand.
What is the difference between the Ikena and the Ikena 2?
The Ikena 2 is obviously a restyling of the original Ikena. The original Ikena had a wide bias band down the front. We have narrowed that and put it on the straight of grain. We've sewn up the side seams and left off the side flanges. Did we narrow the sleeves? No. Mm-mm. We added pockets.
Correct.
And we lengthened it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially it. So if you have the original Ikena pattern, you can do the same thing.
Someone did mention that they clean their blades on their serger with alcohol.
I've never heard that. That's good.
So,
my serger is always filthy. It's one of those pieces of machinery I don't take good enough care of. But it's also never been in the shop, so I don't know.
I'm not seeing any other questions. I did see a couple questions about the content of some of the fabrics. So if there's anything in particular you want to know, let us know which fabrics.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can go to the link that Betsy gave on all the fabrics that are on special.
Okay. I forgot to talk about my knotted scarf.
Oh, we'll go over that now.
Yeah. Erin designed this and made this. This looks like a basketball goal, but it's made out of stretched tubes of jersey. And you wear a scarf like this fairly often, actually, don't you?
I love to wear scarves in general.
Yeah. So we have a little tutorial on how to do this. That's kind of fun. But you have a solid red one that you wear quite a bit. That'd be fun for the holidays. You could put a couple beads on it.
Oh, that'd be fun.
A couple sequins that fall off of your... yeah, whatever falls on the floor when you're making that sequin top, sew them on your scarf.
There you go, when you cut them out of your seam allowance.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't see anything else.
Okay. Well, we have a lot of things on sale today. In addition to the fabrics, all of the fabrics, the patterns on sale are the Eureka top, or the Eureka top and skirt, actually, the Ann's cardigan and tank, the Ikena 2, which is a download, the E-skirt, a download, 8th Avenue, both, swing tees, a download. And then we have a tutorial called Sewing Velvet. It's quite comprehensive, actually, about sewing in velvet. A tutorial called Sewing Crinkles, Gauzes, and Lace. Another one called Sewing Open Work Fabrics. There's a little bit of a duplication there, so you probably don't need both. The tutorial on how to make the silk scarf. The silk scarf. A tutorial on how to make the knotted scarf. And a tutorial on making this covers a lot more than just this, but it's the So Confident First Quarter Series 7 that has in it how to adapt your swing tee pattern into this design. So lots going on.
We did have one last question here. It says, are you going to talk about So Confident 2022 today?
No, I'm going to talk about that. We introduced that on Thursday, a little bit, sneak peek. But the 13th is Monday, so Tuesday next week, we talk about that. I forgot also we have 3 books on sale. Scarves to Make, my most beautiful book. All of the photography was done on the streets of New York. That was the most fun book I ever wrote. The Sewing Workshop book has a lot of scarf and little bag, all kinds of gift ideas, really, to make. Or the book is a gift. And then Sew Easy Scarves, which has the patterns for 12 different scarves. Okay, is that it?
That's it.
All right. Well, see you Thursday if you're So Confident monthly or yearly member. And see you next Tuesday, and I will talk about So Confident 2022. Thank you for asking. We'll see you Thursday or Tuesday.